In this lesson, we're going to look at receiving. After you complete this lesson, you should have a good idea of the receiving process, receipt routings, the receipt processing methods, what a standard receipt is, substitutes, or unordered receipts, pay on receipt, returns and corrections, and some of the setups. So let's start with the big picture. Off a PO or from other organizations, we will frequently receive material. Material come in the back door, we can do inspections, put it away, deliver it to expense, we can stage it to consolidate it. During the setup process, you can define receiving tolerances and rules for the organization, for the supplier, for the item, and on the PO. As things default, the system looks first at the org, supplier, item, and then whatever's on the purchase order is going to win because that's a legal document. So you can set the parameters, but you can get specific as you go down in that particular hierarchy. Multiple ways to put things away, and we'll talk about those as we go. If you can do a correction. If things need to go back to the supplier, you can do returns. You can always review what has happened. So here's an example of ship to location, receiving dock, bring 20 in, goes into the cold storage, then it gets inspected, and then splits. Some go to the bulk area, some get delivered to manufacturing. So basically you can model whatever makes good business sense. There are different routings. So your one step, I don't know if dock to stock is the perfect example, but it is dock to point of use, direct delivery. You do one transaction, it brings into the back door and delivers it. A standard receipt is a two-step process where somebody receives it in to receiving and then it gets delivered. And the third, material comes in the back door. It is inspected. If it is good, then it goes to stock. If it gets rejected, then you can disposition it. Generally, it'll go back to the supplier. Some other process methods. So you can leverage the ASN, ASBN, which would really be nice if they spelled those out for you. Advanced shipping notice, and advanced shipping, and billing notice. So you can do that in the supplier portal from work area. For receiving, you can do it EDI, XML. Also, you can bring the information in through web services. So lots of options for getting the information into the system and hopefully saving some manual input. The expected receipt view allows you to choose where you're going to receive material into. So that's choosing your organization. Many times that'll default if you're just assigned to one org, or you can choose it. When purchase orders are created, they have the ship to. If it's an inventory item, it's going to be shipped to an inventory org. You can look things up by item number, by whomever sent it, transfer order. If there's a customer return, you can look it up by that. You can do a blind query and just say, show me everything within a particular time period. Once you have found the materials you want to bring in the back door, then you can enter the details, confirm the quantity, double check unit measure, make sure the location's right. Some inventory, if that doesn't default in, confirm your receipt routing, whether it's going to into stock or it's an expense item. You can override the receipt routing if your parameters and receiving are set up, so you can do so. And you want to populate the appropriate information on the header, like the freight carrier, any comments, packing slip. Basically, any additional information you have is always good to put on there, just in case somebody needs to go look for it later on. Maybe they don't know the PO, but they have a packing slip number, so it could save trouble down the road. And once everything is populated and ready to roll, you can hit submit. Let's pop over to the app and take a quick peek. So I'm already logged in. Clicked on supply chain execution. I'm going to go into the classic, go up to the task tray, make sure I'm in receipts, and let's go look expected shipments. I'm going to go ahead and clear the due dates. Hopefully there's some stuff that are passed. See, some of these have item numbers, so those are going to deliver to stock or inventory. And then the others are expense. So if I check this interview checkbox, click on the, so there's the item, PO line, supplier's item number, supplier, received by, which is who I'm logged in as. It's going to be a direct receipt. If we click on the actions, we can tell, so all the information about the item, weight attachments, PFF setup, we could see those. Tax determinant, if you care about all that good stuff. You can see, and then I can just create receipt. And I want to go back because I want to look real quick at an inventory item. So again, this is the part number. There's the PO, line, supplier, receiving. So this one's a standard receipt, so it'll be received and then put away. And similarly on the actions, we've got the details there and the tax information, purchasing transacts, assessed $3. So we'll receipt, where I can put in any notes, shipment information, shipping method, packing clip number. I get a bill of lading, tracking number, number of packages, and I can hit submit. And hopefully we'll get a little message at the bottom of the screen. Yep, receipt created, 651. All right, that's a quick peek at the receipt. So let's look at the receipt structure. Easy for me to say. So we've got our header. We saw that. Basically, we can add additional information at the header level. Again, we want to make sure we add as much information as we have. At the line level, that's the specific item. So we saw the toner. We also saw the inventory item. So the specific good has on it. And then the transaction will have all the details. And if we had something that was lot control, serial control, we could capture that information as well. So we saw, well, the system generated the receipt number. Who's receiving? That was me. And the receipt date will be on there. And then the rest of it I added. So the shipping method, the beauty of the ASN, ASBN is a lot of that information defaults in for you. Line level, where all the details are. So the quantity, entered measure, item description, destination type. Again, it has the order, the receipt routing. If there was a requester, that'll be on there where it's going to deliver it to, and a place for notes. If you have issues where things need to go, you can do a return. So generally speaking, if something is recalled through the inspection process, you can do the return to supplier. RMA may or may not be needed. And if it's coming all the way out as a checkbox to generate the shipping information, wish we had that 20 years ago. And also, I think create the debit memo. Correction is fixing an oops. So somebody brought something in on the wrong line against the wrong PO. And the big difference is, besides the fact that the system, the different types of transaction, is when you do a correction, your supplier never gets, they do a return, means you got to get some of these go in and update the date that it's going to come back. And for your supplier performance, they may get dinged. What I mean by dinged is that we'll send something that was not what you expected or not up to snuff, whatever the case might be. Some additional features. You have the ability to set your receipt tolerance. So the receipt tolerance allows you to say days early and over receipt. Now, I will suggest that if you want date tolerances, do that at the supplier level, item level, or because the guy at the back door doesn't care if it's early or late. He just wants to get it in the back door. But the specific supplier items, set the parameter at those levels. Additionally, you can do over receipt. In an industry that plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10 is applicable, great. You can also do that for the items or the supplier. When I bought wire and cable, if it was a few feet over, I didn't care. It was great. If we were a little short, there's actually a parameter you can set if they're within a certain tolerance so you don't have them hanging open. It'll close those out. That makes your month end a lot easier too. Managing unordered receipts. We used to get those once in a while. Eddie, the engineer, would send me the sales guy and ask him to drop off something, samples, whatever it might be, and they might be or even a part. There might be a requisition that goes and sits in somebody's inbox. This was a while ago. Well, we used paper. But Sammy would drop it off in the morning on his way to the gym because he knew Mikey opened that back door at 6 in the morning. So the parts come in. Mikey knew the supplier, knew the engineer that asked for the stuff, but there was no PO in the system. So you can, with the unordered receipts, you have a mechanism to bring it in, and then it flags it in the system, and then as the order comes through, you can match up what's going on. If they did a manual rec in the system, that might be why the buyers haven't seen it. But just kind of notes this out nice. Then you don't have the problem of, I dropped it off. I didn't get flag everything that comes through the back door. Substitute receipts, there's a setting that says we will allow for substitute receipts. You predefine the receipt substitute and the substitute item, and you can bring that in the back door. If you're consumer packaged goods, not a big deal. I bring in something that's pretty much identical, maybe a different part number, but it is fit format. I can swap it out, coming in the back door or going out to the customer. Pay on receipt is kind of a misnomer. We're not going to pay on receipt, but we're going to generate the invoice when something comes in the back door automatically. I like the example of kind of just-in-time delivery of tires for vehicles. Every vehicle gets 4 tires. So if we shipped out 100 cars during the week, we consume 400 tires. So I'm just going to pay you for 400 tires. If there's an issue, we'll work the issue. It doesn't pay, but it generates that invoice. So you pay based on your payrolls. So it's truly not pay on receipt. There's also a profile that you can set for aging period, which is the number of days after the receipt is actually create the invoice when the send payment on receipt process runs. The delay gives you time to enter any corrections, adjustments, and returns. So if you want to give yourself a little built-in grace period of a couple of days before that invoice is generated, you can use that profile. The receipt close point is when the shipment is closed for receiving. So the options are when something is accepted, so it's passed inspection, delivered, or received. Note that you need to set the receipt close tolerance percentage. That's what I was talking about. So the receipt close tolerance percentage is the percentage where the line will automatically close if it's within the tolerance. So again, if you have stuff that's, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10, if you get close, I always go back to wire. I ordered 10,000 feet and I got 995. I'm not going to get a spool of 5 feet. So close the line, close the PO, let the invoicing go, and it's not hanging out there, doesn't show up on my past due report, all those fun things. Parameters. So I mentioned some of these. So the ship to exception, are we going to flag that? Yes, no, or are we going to reject things if it comes to the wrong place? How you want to manage your ASNs. So if something is amiss, what are we going to do with that? The default is set to warning. Receipt date tolerances, again, early, late, reject days, exceeding action. So we can do nothing, reject, pop up a warning. Again, my personal opinion on this is at this level or the OS with it. If you have problems with a supplier, an item, then set it there. Over receipt, again, that's another one of those things where depends on your industry. If plus or minus 5 is great. You may have certain items though that you want to have tighter controls, like really expensive ones. You don't want those to be overshipped because they're so. And then the last one is the receipt routing. Is it going to be direct standard or is it going through inspection? Some of you are going to allow substitute receipts. Yes, no, unordered receipts. Are we going to do blind receiving? That's where I put really dark sunglasses on them. And no, I'm just kidding. Blind receiving means we're not going to automatically print the receipt traveler. You can default a local printer. You can include closed POs for receipt when people are looking for POs in the expected shipments. UI, allow overriding of the routing. There's another process, all lines together. That's just basically a performance thing. Print shipping docs for return to supplier. That's the one I wish we had years ago. Automatically create that for me. On the receipt number generation, when you do, hopefully somebody has coached you to create a gap between your legacy numbers and your new numbers. That way it's really easy to tell if something was in the legacy or the new system. You can have it generate them, alphanumeric, and you can set up the next number. Again, out of the box, it'll default to 0. So if you want it to be, 10,000 when you first start, 1,000. Return material authorizations. You can predefine what the receipt routing should look like. So if you want things to come in and get directly delivered to a certain sub-inventory for disposition, or do you want to bring them back in and have them go through inspection before you even bring them back in the back door, you can do that. You can also do validations for lot numbers and serial numbers to make sure that what is coming back in, it's against the proper PO that you shipped it on. Some additional profile options. So we have the aging period for extended receipt settlement. So you can manage that. If you're doing the pay on receipt or extended receipt settlement, you can have it prefix those. I think the default's ERS. Rate type for user override at receipt allowed. Yes or no. You can override the currency or the rate type. And then the last one is how you want to process your receiving, or do it in batch or as they go. There is tight integration with receiving and inspection. So there's two types of inspections. There's the receiving inspection, which basically allows you to say, this is good. We're going to put it away. If it fails, we're going to send it back, or if it's not good. With the quality inspection module, you can define what you want checked for a category of items or individual items. You can set things up to do first articles. So if you send something out, the very first one that's made, you bring it in, check pretty much every dimension on it. You can do that. With the quality module, if something does fail, off a quality action, and that action can kick off a corrective action process to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The inspection module also lets you set up skip lot. So if I get 4 good batches, then I can tell the system, then I want to inspect maybe every other batch, or every third inspection allows you to do batch or sampling as in parts based on my parameters. Maybe I only have to inspect 100. 95 good ones, then I'll accept the lot. If I get 94 good ones, I'll reject the lot because that's outside the parameters of my inspection level comfort zone. We've looked a lot, talked about the routing, the process, what information you're going to see on the receipt itself. I did a